What's going on, guys? Philip at Trade Genius. In this video, we're going to dive into the Bitcoin and S&P 500 markets and going to look at the correlation there. I want to talk about what the S&P 500 is currently doing in this range and what to watch for this week as we head into some pretty good earnings. Talk about a nuance I'm seeing on the Delta chart that might be giving us also a heads up on what's coming, and talk about this level I'm looking at up here. So without further ado, let's dive into this video.
Trade Genius.
Real quick, guys, package number one gets you in the room, gets you the ribbon indicator and the profit or bottom sniper indicator, as we call it. And also you'll get access to our multi-lesson course on trading the profit ribbon. So not only do you get the chat room and the signals in the room and things like that, but you also have the tools to learn how to trade yourself and a really easy system to do so. And you can trade all the markets with this. And anyway, look forward to seeing you guys in the room. Again, head over to tradegenius.co. Check out package number one. All right, let's dive into the charts. Okay, so first up, SPX. And what I want you to notice is if you see from back in April 9th now, if you look at this range between these two black bars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12th day now we've been in this range. So what that tells you is that we have balance in here, but we also have indecision in here. And this market is looking for a move one way or the other out of this. Now, obviously, the 618 level is still like looming large overhead. And when we get this close, obviously, a lot of people start looking at that level, that technical level, to be filled. You could also call this somewhat of a double top here at this juncture. But I think what might be happening is we had this rally. We typically get these at least one large extended bounce. We got that. Same thing happened in 08. Profit ribbon sell here. Haven't really seen the market react down, but I think what's happening is this week we've got a lot of big earnings. You got Amazon, Google, or Alphabet, parent company of Google. We've got Facebook, we've got Tesla. And I think that we're going to see probably a reaction, and it might be a case of buy up to the news and then sell the news. Typically the saying goes, buy the rumor, sell the news. Now, keep in mind these earnings are downgraded. They're not what we would typically expect to see. So if they do beat estimated earnings, that's not such a great thing. And if they miss, that's even worse. Okay, so let's just see what happens. I think this is a pivotal week. I think this is where we get a decision where we come in or out of this range. But until anything inside this range really doesn't do much. Now, that is, though, bullish, I think, for Bitcoin, because the longer we gyrate sideways on the S&P 500, Bitcoin tends to eke out a little bit more gain in the way of gains over the S&P 500. And as you can see, for the last, if you take the last 12 trading days, we've grinded higher, and have actually outperformed the S&P 500 in terms of percentage gain. So it's good if we're not rolling over in the S&P 500, and it's good if we're chopping in the S&P 500. Where things get interesting is if we fall out of that balance range here in the S&P 500. Do we ever get to see that decoupling, or does it just roll over? I think the decoupling comes, but does it come now, or do we have a risk to the downside? Now, fast forward here to the Delta chart. And one thing I've noticed is, as you know, basically we're cycling up and down, right? And when we're in the cycle of up, as noted by the blue shaded area, that's when the futures information is telling us that most likely it's buy the dip mode. You'll notice when we get toward the end of these cycles, you'll see a tapering off of the Delta, or basically the Delta average. And that starts to taper off, and then turns red, gets below zero line, which historically, if you're buying zero dips in a bull market, that's just a raging buy entry. But when we're coming out of or forming bottoms, a lot of times you spend an extended period of time right around zero, which has been the case. But the last couple of bounces, we've noticed that you'll start to taper off on your Delta reading, and then we roll over into a short condition, which means go ahead and short those pops to those moving averages. So we've had a nice move up. This particular, basically buy the dip mode, didn't really get any closes below the WMA 20, which is pretty strong. Okay. And we've kind of did that here, and then we started to roll over, broke it, and then came down. And I thought we would come down and at least test this WMA 65 over the weekend, because weekends have been kind of weak. Didn't even get that. In fact, we saw a scam wick higher, Now, what I'm looking at to the upside, you got to be respectful of this, basically this price block here, where the low of it is at 78.40 and the high of it is at 79.30. That's on Coinbase. I think if we probe up into this level, you could see a scam wick up into that level, and you could see some front running of the 8,000 level. But I think this area here on this first probe, and you'll notice we come up under it, right? But haven't really pierced into it. But I do think we're going to see a reaction at that level. And I do think that it does give us some resistance. And that's all things being equal. If the market is still gyrating in that range that we just showed you, then I think that Bitcoin is somewhat free to grind higher. But if it rolls over, breaks down out of that balance, watch for a pretty steep pullback down. Again, we're just turning back into the short condition here, and the last two times we've seen that, we've broken down well below the WMA 65. So that is a risk here. If you are short, the risk is that you get a scam wick up into this block here. So personally, I would rather short a quick pulse higher up into this area and then see if that's just a brief one-time wick up, comes back inside and it gets back under. And I think you got probably another short move down to the downside, breaking this WMA. But if largely the S&P 500 is still in that range and hasn't broken down, that's going to be bullish, because that's been the case basically on these last couple of times where we've had that cycle down, and that's going to get bought and then pushed back up. So would I rather be long or short here? I think this move into the halving is not really so much the halving grind higher, so much as we've been tied to the S&P 500. Because if you look at this chart here, 30-minute chart, here's our top of the market back in February. We rolled over, and we've just been largely tied to this whole structure of the S&P 500 the whole time. We haven't really broken away. Prior to that, yeah, we kind of moved independently of it, didn't really get tied to its move. Because if you notice, S&P 500 kind of was just grinding higher. Bitcoin was doing its thing, but you couldn't really correlate much of the moves together. And this one, yeah, I mean, it's boom, down, bounce up, all the way up into here together. So S&P, if it does lose the balance area that we're in and rolls over, then we have the potential for another down leg. And then that's where I'm going to start looking for a decoupling, every day, looking to see if the decoupling is starting. Because I think in that area down, if that does roll over, if it rolls over this week, I think somewhere in the next couple of weeks is where you're going to see that decoupling happen. So that's going to be key. One last thing I wanted to show you guys was the expiration chart. Now, normally when we've been rising into the expiration, we've been rolling over a little bit, giving some back. And that was another thing I was looking at for pullback into the weekend. And that didn't come. So a little interesting nuance there. Also heading into the earnings, I just think nothing's really giving anything up here. I do think the reaction this week is going to be very telling. If we still stay in the balance this week, that's going to be kind of an interesting set of circumstances. We could largely chop in the S&P 500, but that would be an unusually long range to be in that usually does not spend that much time in it. So the probabilities would say that we're due for a break, higher or lower. Honestly, in the S&P 500, it could be either way, and Bitcoin's going to follow. If not, if it chops further, look for Bitcoin to grind higher, buy the dips. Okay, the only time I would say watch out, run for the hills, is if we lose that balance area in the S&P 500 and it rolls over. Then that's going to be pretty bearish. All right, guys. Well, that's it for this video. I hope it helps. That's kind of the outlook Tuesday morning going forward. Again, earnings, watch for the Google, Amazon, Tesla, those guys. Earnings you can look up online and just check out which days they're announcing. But I think that's going to be pretty big reactions for the stock market, and in turn, whether or not that drags Bitcoin down. So just keep that in mind this week. Kind of a big week to see how things react. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe. It really helps out our channel. I will see you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.
Trade Genius.